the most recent living astronaut to walk on the moon. Apollo 17 astronaut and former United States Senator from the great state of New Mexico, Harrison Schmitt, joins me now. Senator, we watched this together last night, along with people all over the world. What an amazing moment, an amazing American moment. As you watched that splashdown in recovery last night, what was going through your mind?
Well, I was reliving doing exactly the same thing with a smaller spacecraft some 53 and a half years ago.
Yeah. Last night's reentry, clearly one of the riskiest parts of the mission. As you just mentioned, you've you've done this. What is it like, and what was it like for them hurtling toward the Earth at that speed and in that moment where you have the blackout, the plasma shield around you, and it is really it's in God's hands, but it's also in the hands of all of those engineers and folks who built this spacecraft. There you are from back in 1972. Talk to us about what they were going through at that moment.
Well, the first thing they're waiting for is what we call 05G. I presume that's still used. That indicates that the spacecraft's starting to feel the atmosphere. And then very quickly after that, the orientation of the lift vector of the spacecraft is such that it makes sure that you're captured. And in doing that, you pull a very high G. We pulled 7 Gs just for an instant. And then the spacecraft the computer holds the spacecraft at for us, about 4 Gs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's at that time, you've already moved into blackout. The blackout, of course, is caused by the ionization of the atmosphere around the spacecraft due to the heat. And you hang in there, you're lying on your back, the G's are through your belly. And so it's not particularly uncomfortable, but you're holding that 4 Gs for a number of minutes during that blackout. And then, of course, you're waiting for the drogue chutes to come out. Now, we just had one set of drogues. I noticed yesterday as we were watching that they had 2 sets of drogues. At least that's what it looked like before the main chutes were deployed.
Yeah.
And then you just drift down, swinging a little bit. You can tell that you're swinging. And at splashdown, you're hitting we hit at about 16 feet per second, which isn't very hard. That's about what a sports chute would hit the ground at. So and then we waited. We started to get pretty warm because of the flow back of heat from the heat shield into the spacecraft, and we had a little bit higher C than they did. So it was a little bit uncomfortable from a C point of view. But otherwise, it looked very much like what we did.
Those chutes last night, those last chutes, they were 116 feet across, and they slowed the capsule down from 25,000 miles an hour to 19 miles an hour, and it just hit the surface. Now, you were one of only 12 people to walk on the moon. With the success of this mission, we're now slated to return to the lunar surface in 2028. How important was this, both from a scientific but also a resource and momentum perspective to get us back there?
Well, it's extremely important. And the administrator, Jared Isaacman, has moved us on to a architecture, a path that is a little bit more like Apollo, in that we're testing out at lunar distances the spacecraft that's going to carry the crew there, and also the operators here on the ground. The flight controllers are getting more and more experience about working in deep space. It's very different than a simulation. The simulations are extraordinarily important, but the difference is now it's real. You've got real people out there that you're taking care of and watching over. So that's as important, I think, as it is to have crewmen gain the experience of working at the lunar distance. Apollo 8 was similar as Artemis 2, except that Apollo 8 we took into lunar orbit, and then Apollo 10 came along, and we took that and the lander into lunar orbit. In between was Apollo 9, and that's basically what Artemis 3 now is going to be. It's going to test everything out in Earth orbit, a very important step in preparation for Artemis 4, which we all anticipate and hope will be another landing on the moon.
NASA looking now to start building a lunar base. What do you see as the top challenge that we need to overcome there? Is it cargo? Is it being able to bring now all of those components using these various vehicles that we're testing to the moon?
Well, as Administrator Isaacman has said, you have to develop a cadence of launches, and so that's the challenge, is to make sure that you can get a systematic cadence of launches so that you can begin to take the hardware to the moon that you need in order to develop that the habitats and indeed that maybe even a warehouse or a garage on the moon as your initial lunar base. So
Yeah.
that cadence of launches is very important.
I just have
Go ahead.
Senator, I just have about a minute left, but I'd love to get your message to Americans and to young people in particular who are looking to the stars really either for the first time or for the first time in a long while.
Well, this Artemis program is extraordinarily important. It's obviously very important geopolitically because we now have another Cold War moving along with China and Russia on one side and the United States and its allies on the other. And the space plays an extremely important part of that. So that's the top-notch idea that we have to be comfortable with. So dealing with that issue in space is extraordinarily important. Takes a great deal of patriotism on everybody's part, but also the science and engineering is extremely important. And remember now that in spite of all the risks that are being taken, all of the budgetary side of this is spent here on Earth, and the technology is used here on Earth as well. The fallout of Apollo technology is immeasurable, and now Artemis is taking much of that technology that developed by the private sector after Apollo and using it now to go back to the moon.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, I'm going to have to leave it there, but sir, it has been such a privilege to speak with you throughout this historic event. The most recent living man to walk on the moon, Apollo 17 astronaut, Senator Harrison Schmitt. God bless you, sir, and thank you for your service to this country. We appreciate you.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.